Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon TCG video. Today's deck is going to focus around the Latios EX as the main attacker of our deck. I had taken a look at a Mega Latios EX deck and I have to say that I personally feel like Latios EX by itself is a better card. I mean, just because we don't have to dedicate a whole lot of deck space to cards such as the Latios Spirit Link, the Mega Latios EXs, just an overall strategy that works with the Mega Latios. So personally, I do prefer the Latios EX. That's not exactly to say that Mega Latios EX isn't a powerful Pokemon. I mean, it certainly can be, especially if the deck build is if we see very solid Mega Latios EX deck build, but nonetheless, I do tend to prefer the Latios EX. So let me provide you guys some reasoning as to why that is. Well, number one, again, we get to save a whole lot of deck space that we don't necessarily need to dedicate to cards such as the Mega Latios EX, the Spirit Links, things like that. Number one, we can make use of the Muscle Band and attach that onto the Latios EX. So immediately, what I like about the Latios EX is that the fast rate attack allows us to hit for 40 damage, and we're able to go. We're able to use this attack during our very first turn, so that's kind of cool. I mean, with a Muscle Band, that Latios EX is able to hit for 60 damage immediately. Hypnotoxic Laser and Virbank City Gym were able to hit for 90 damage right off the bat, so that's kind of cool. We're able to put the pressure on nice and early, which is something I really like about the Latios EX deck. Also, the Light Pulse attack, it does seem quite energetically expensive, and I mean it is, but with the Double Dragon Energy, we can theoretically set it up in 2 turns. More often, 3 turns is sort of the amount of time that it tends to take, I would say, just because, usually we'll attach a Double Dragon Energy and then 2 regular energies, so it often takes 3 turns. At least that's been my experience so far with respects to a lot of the games that I have been playing. But nonetheless, Light Pulse is not an attack that should be underestimated. I mean, you guys can see that it only caps at a total of 110 damage, so it doesn't seem all that impressive. But when we run the Latios EX in combination with the Altarias with the Fight Song ability, that is a Pokemon that just is a major helping hand to the Latios EX. I mean, Fight Song allows us to increase the total damage output of each of our Dragon type Pokemon by an additional 20 damage to each of our opponent's active Pokemon. So if we happen to have a total of 4 Altarias in our bench and then make use of the Light Pulse attack, then that means that the Latios EX can hit for a massive 190 damage. And again, that's without any sorts of tool type attachment. So Altaria is a very useful Pokemon. We are running 4 copies of him. We're also running a single copy of the Hydreigon EX with the Dragon Root ability. This is just to allow our Dragon type Pokemon to be able to have free retreats. Now, just something to keep in mind is that there needs to be a Stadium card in play for the Dragon Road ability for us to really be able to use this ability. So just something to keep in mind. Could potentially cost a game if you guys feel like you can just bring out the Hydreigon EX and then you realize that there's no Stadium card in play, and then you're like, my goodness, that was a foolish mistake. So just giving you guys a heads up ahead of time. We're also going to be running Virizion EX as the very last Pokemon in our deck. We're going to be making use of its Verdant Wind ability. You guys are quite familiar with what this card does. Prevents our Pokemon that have any grass energies from being affected by any sorts of special conditions. Now, of course, we're not running any grass energy cards, but the Double Dragon Energy, we can essentially make them count as any sort of energy card. So the Virizion EX special ability, we are still going to be able to make use of it. So we are running 1 copy of this card in our deck. Now, discussing the item cards in our deck, guys, we have a very speedy sort of build. So one of the cards that you guys are able to see right away is the Wally supporter card. This is just so that we can bring out the Altarias nice and early. We'd like to increase the total damage output of the Latios EX, and Wally helps us out a great deal. So we are running a total of 2 copies of the Wally. Again, this is just to be used in combination with the Altaria, just to bring them out a little bit earlier. We're also running the Computer Search, just in keeping with the basic idea that our deck is meant to be very speedy. I felt like this was the A-Spec card to go with. Could potentially use the Dowsing Machine as well, but I would personally recommend the A-Spec Computer Search just because it tends to be much better with respects to this sort of deck. We're also running a total of 4 copies of the Hypnotoxic Laser. This will ideally allow us to poison the opponent's active Pokemon, hopefully put them to sleep as well, but usually it's just to increase the total damage output of the Latios EX enough such that we can ideally get those 1-hit knockouts. Of course, Hypnotoxic Laser in itself isn't all that impressive, but when it is coupled with the Virbank City Gym, that's when the Hypnotoxic Laser really starts to give us some pretty astounding results. So we are running a total of 3 copies of the Virbank City Gym. In case the opponent would like to use the Stadium card against us and make use of Pokemon such as the Gengar EX to inflict poisoning upon us, again, just keep in mind that we do have the Virizion EX, so that will be our own counter to the opponent sort of shifting the Stadium card against us. So just something to keep in mind. So Virizion EX is a very cool Pokemon. The other cards in our deck, guys, are pretty self-explanatory. I'm not really going to go over them in great detail, so just briefly going to be discussing them. Startling Megaphone, of course, that is our main anti-Garbodor sort of card, so that's its entire purpose in our deck. 4 Ultra Balls to allow us to grab the Pokemon that we need. 3 VS Seekers will allow us to make use of any of our supporter type cards. A single Colress, 4 Ends, and 4 Junipers are used for some draw support. 2 Lysandres to lure out any of our opponent's bench Pokemon. 3 Muscle Bands will allow us to increase the total damage output of our Latios EXs, and a total of 13 energy cards. So with that, guys, we're gonna go and find ourselves an opponent. Now you guys may be thinking, well, how exactly am I going to combat cards such as the Sigilif with the Safeguard ability, the Suicune with the Safeguard ability? Well, ideally, we'd like to just make use of the Hypnotoxic Lasers and the Virbank City Gyms, but we could also bring out our Altarias into play and knock out those sorts of Pokemon with them. I mean, Altaria by itself is relatively easy to knock out. But I mean, if we have a couple of Altarias out at play, even those Altarias can be quite menacing and hit for quite a bit of damage. So that's sort of my main counter to those types of strategies. I don't really think we're going to be encountering a whole ton of Safeguard Pokemon. Again, with all the testing that I've currently done with this deck, I haven't actually come across a single Safeguard Pokemon in a while. Actually, I've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of decks running Safeguard Pokemon, so I don't really think it's going to be a massive issue. Looks like the opponent is going to be running a Team Magma's Camerupt EX sort of deck, so this should be kind of interesting. We are seeing the Trainer's Mail looking for the Battle Compressor, probably going to see 2 Fire Energies going into the discard pile and possibly the Blacksmith card as well. And then the opponent is probably going to use the VS Seeker to retrieve some of those Fire Energy cards and then latch them on into the Camerupt EX. Okay, so it looks like I was wrong. It is going to be a total of 3 copies of the Fire Energy card. The Blacksmith, though, the opponent happened to have in their hand, so he will be able to make use of that card. So that Camerupt EX could potentially knock out the Latios EX during our next turn. So this is not, I mean, that's not something that I'm really looking forward to. So you know what, guys, I think I'm actually going to go and Lysandre out the opponent's Team Magma's normal. Hopefully that can allow us to buy a little bit of time. So let's go and use the fast trade. Again, the opponent will need a total of 2 energy cards or a switch card of some sort to be able to freely retreat his Team Magma's normal. So hopefully this will allow us to buy a little bit of time. I feel like the opponent has a pretty ideal setup, and looks like the Team Magma's normal will be able to retreat, but luckily we've just allowed ourselves to be able to stay out of reach of that explosive jet attack. Alright, so let's go and bring out the Team Magma's Altaria. I'd love to make use of the Light Pulse attack if possible, so you know what, I'm gonna hold off on the Water Energy card for now. Let's go and use the Professor Juniper to get some new cards in our hand, and awesome, looks like we could potentially knock out the opponent's Team Magma's Camerupt. Unfortunately, we don't have the Muscle Band, but nonetheless, we are going to try and put the opponent under the sleep condition, and awesome, looks like we are going to get the heads. So our opponent's Pokemon should be dying in between turns. Let's go and attach another Double Dragon Energy onto the Latios EX. I'm going to go and bring out 2 additional Latios EXs onto our deck, and then let's go and use the Light Pulse attack, hit our opponent for 130 damage, and hope that it remains asleep. Unfortunately, the opponent is going to flip the head, so that Camerupt EX is going to wake up. But that's okay, we should be able to knock it out during our next turn with one of our Latios EXs, or the opponent's Camerupt EX should succumb to the poison damage, allowing us to draw onto 2 prize cards. We are seeing the opponent use the Ultra Ball. Probably going to see another, yes, it looks like another Camerupt EX is going to come out. The Explosive Jet attack is probably going to get used, hitting the Latios EX for a massive 200 damage, and both us and the opponent will be able to draw onto 2 prize cards. So it looks like it is a pretty even game right now. However, we will be able to attack first with our own Latios EX. Alright, so I think using the Juniper would probably be the best card of choice at the moment. I mean, I definitely need some sort of energy card. I feel like N would probably not be all that great. I know we're giving up a whole lot of useful cards in our hand, but you know what, guys? I think I'm going to go through with it anyway. So let's go and give up 2 random cards in our hand. I'm going to go and look for a Swablu temporarily and lay it down into the bench. So let's go and bring him out. I'm going to go and use that Juniper Really hoping that it's not a mistake. Again, we're discarding a whole lot of useful cards, but I'm gonna go through with it anyways. And okay, so we're gonna get the Hypnotoxic Laser and hope for the heads. Awesome, looks like we're gonna get another head. Attach the Muscle Band onto the Latios EX and the Psychic Energy card as well. I'm gonna hold off on the Swablu for now. I mean, I could potentially need this slot open for the Hydreigon EX just to allow us to freely retreat in between our Pokemon. And then let's go and use the fast rate attack, hitting that Camerupt EX for 80 damage, and it is going to remain asleep. So things are not looking all that great for our opponent anymore. That Team Magma's Camerupt is finally making its appearance. We are seeing the Ultra Ball. Probably another Team Magma's, another Camerupt EX is going to, yeah, so it looks like it is going to be another Camerupt EX. The opponent is probably going to start loading it up, at least loading up his Team Magma's Camerupt with those Fire Energy cards, which the opponent can then discard using the Explosive Jet attack. So I'd still say the game is very much so in our favor. We're seeing the Switch card, a Trainer's Mail. A switch, my goodness, our opponent will be able to bring out his Camerupt EX. Again, though, it can only use the Tumbling attack right now, only hitting us for 30 damage, so not really impressive by any means. And we have an Altaria at hand. I think I'm going to go and use another Juniper, guys. So let's go and use that Ultra Ball, get rid of the Swablu in our hand, and the N as well to look for one more Altaria, which I will be bringing out. So let's go and bring him out. Let's go and use that VS Seeker to look for the Juniper. I think would be the way to go. I mean, I could have grabbed onto the Lysandre as well, but then we had absolutely no cards in our hand, so I think using the Juniper would be a bit of a better option. I think I'm going to go and attach the Double Dragon Energy onto our benched Latios EX for the time being. Let's go and use the fast rate attack, hit our opponent for 120 damage for a single energy card. Now, this is precisely what I really like about the Latios EX deck. I mean, it's just very efficient, very, very fast. And yeah, so that's pretty much my entire reasoning for it. Alright, we are seeing the Ultra Ball, the opponent getting rid of 2 cards in their hand, another normal. Our opponent is going to need to, okay, so we're definitely going to be seeing the Explosive Jet attack knocking out the Latios EX, a Juniper as well on the opponent's end. I think I'm probably going to use the N during our next turn, guys, just to reduce the number of cards in our opponent's hand to a mere 2. I mean, I don't want our opponent to be able to somehow be able to load up another one of his Camerupt EXs and then go for a massive one-hit knockout on us during the next turn. Because again, the opponent certainly does still stand a chance at beating us. I mean, we never know how the battle is going to end up. Camerupt EX hitting us for a massive 150 damage and allowing the opponent to draw onto 2 additional prize cards. Alright, so let's go and bring out the Latios EX, guys. I'm gonna go and attach the Muscle Band onto the Latios EX. Absolutely will not be bringing out the Virizion EX. Just very easy to knock out due to that fire weakness, and I don't really think we're gonna be making much use of it. Let's go and lay down the Virbank City Gym. I'm gonna go and attach a Water Energy card onto the Latios EX. Use that N to reduce the number of cards in the opponent's hand, and then let's go and use the fast rate attack, hitting the opponent's Camerupt EX for 120 damage once again and drawing onto 2 prize cards. So we should be able to win during our next turn, guys, if I am able to Lysandre out the opponent's Camerupt EX. Hopefully we don't see an N on the opponent's end. Those Team Magma's Camerupts could be a little bit troubling. We are seeing the Lysandre, but luckily for us, guys, we do have the the Hydreigon EX, but nonetheless we're not even going to need to use it. I'm simply going to go and retreat the Altaria and Lysandre out the opponent's Camerupt EX. So let's go and bring him out, use the fast rate attack, and then draw our last 2 prize cards. So that's a pretty cool deck, guys. As you guys can see, Latios EX, very, very impressive. I think I'm actually going to go and find ourselves another opponent just so that you guys can see this deck a little bit more in action. Just a very nice deck. Ideally, we can start first this time and attack with the fast rate attack. Immediately, that would be sort of an ideal situation, but nonetheless I have to say that I've been very impressed with the Latios EX in general. Looks like this time around we're going to be facing a possibly a fairy deck. I'm not really sure. I mean, we're seeing quite a few different types of Pokemon in the opponent's deck, and it looks like the opponent is going to start first, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Let's go and bring out the Latios EX as our active Pokemon. I'm really hoping that the opponent does not have a heavy fairy-based deck, probably going to be the Seismitoad EX Slurpuff sort of deck. We are seeing the Ultra Ball, so the opponent is going to get rid of 2 of their Leafeons. We are seeing the Eevee. Okay, so it looks like I'm probably wrong. The Silver Bangle as well. It's probably going to be a Flareon based deck. The Ultra Ball, probably going to see the Jirachi EX, I'm guessing. Maybe a Shaman EX as well to get for some draw support. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't really make sense for the opponent to get rid of their entire hand. And it looks like it is going to be the Jirachi EX. Juniper, I'm almost positive, is the card that the opponent will be grabbing out. Yeah, oh sorry, Sycamore, same thing. Both allow the opponent to be able to draw onto 7 cards. And alright, so that EV is getting loaded up and ready to go. Battle Compressor, the opponent is going to get some of their worthless cards into the discard pile. So we're probably gonna see a couple of auto things like that going into the opponent's discard pile, possibly some executes as well. And looks like it's gonna be an execute, Slurpuff, and the Leafeon. Now, the reason I was a little bit worried about our opponent running a Fairy type deck is because we have the Fairy weakness, so that would not have been a great situation. I don't really think we're going to be making much use of the Wally cards in our deck, guys, so I think I'm going to go and get rid of both of them to look for a Swablu, which I will be bringing out into the bench. Hopefully we can draw onto a Muscle Band and a Psychic Energy card to be able to knock out the opponent's Swirlix with a single attack. I think I'm actually going to resort to using the Juniper as opposed to the N. No energy cards. This is not a good situation by any means for us whatsoever, guys. I'm gonna go and use the Ultra Ball to get rid of the Juniper in our hand and the Virbank City Gym as well, to look for another one of our Swablus, which I will be bringing out into the bench once again. Unfortunately, guys, I can't really do much besides that, so I have to go and end the turn, really hoping that the opponent is unable to bring out his Flareon. I mean, he only has 5 Pokemon in the discard pile right now, so hopefully the opponent is unable to get the one-hit knockout on the Latios EX, but we never know. Those Flareon decks are just incredibly fast and powerful. We're seeing another Battle Compressor. The opponent is really trimming down their deck, but simultaneously that is also making the Flareon a lot more powerful. Okay, so let's see what cards the opponent decides to put into their discard pile this time around. It looks like we're seeing a Ditto and the Deoxys EX, and as well as that, we are seeing another Swirlix as well. The Floatstone will get attached to the opponent's Swirlix, so that Flareon is probably going to make its appearance. And how many Pokemon do we see in the opponent's discard pile? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 Pokemon. Currently, well, we're seeing the Ultra Ball as well, another EV. I'm sure the opponent is going to manage to pull off the one-hit knockout on the Latios EX. I mean, I have almost no doubts. It's probably going to hit us for exactly that magic 170 damage. Let's see if I was right. Okay, 160 damage. The opponent was 10 HP short. So I'm actually quite happy about that. Let's go and bring out an Altaria. I'm going to go and bring out another Latios EX. Attach the Muscle Band onto the Latios EX, guys. I mean, I could potentially, yeah, you know what, I'm actually going to go and attach the Muscle Band onto one of our benched Latios EXs. Hopefully I can bring out the Hydreigon EX, guys, and then freely retreat this Latios EX. I mean, with 10 HP, but then again, the opponent's Flareons can very easily knock out our Pokemon, so I don't know, we'll see how things go. But you know what, let's go and grab onto the Juniper to get ourselves a brand new hand. We should be able to knock out our opponent's Flareon with a single attack, I believe. So currently 40, 60, 80, yeah, so I think, sorry, just making sure, 60, 80, yeah, so I'm definitely going to have to use the Hypnotoxic Laser. So let's go and use that to poison the opponent's Flareon. You know what, I think we're just going to go and stick with our active Latios EX as being the main attacker right now. It's probably going to get knocked out in a single attack anyways. All the opponent really needs to do is bring out another Flareon. So let's go and bring out another Swablu, I think, yeah. Yeah, I think another Swablu is fine for now. I mean, we could definitely bring out a Hydreigon EX during our next turn, because I'm positive our active Latios EX will be getting knocked out. Let's go and use the fast rate attack, hit our opponent for 80 damage. That poison damage is going to come through for us and allow us to get the knockout. So that's kind of nice. The opponent is going to bring out the Swirlix temporarily as their own active Pokemon. I mean, if he's unable to bring out another Flareon, guys, oh, okay, looks like we're going to see the Leafeon instead. Okay, so no, it looks like the opponent was not able to make use of that energy evolution ability. So maybe the opponent has all of their Leafeons in the discard pile. Yeah, so we actually see 3 of them in the discard pile right now. I'll absolutely be Lysandering out the opponent's EV. So you know what, let's go and attach a double colorless energy onto the Latios EX again. For now, I'm going to go and stick with this Latios EX as our own active Pokemon. Let's go and Lysander out the opponent's EV and then use the fast rate attack, knock out the EV, and then draw onto an additional prize card. I don't think our opponent will be able to knock out our Latios EX during this turn unless he attaches a double colorless energy onto his Swirlix, for example. We're seeing another EV coming out. So let's see what the opponent decides to grab this time around. Possibly another EV, maybe a Juniper or something like that. Unfortunately, I can't take a look at what cards the opponent will be grabbing, so it is going to be a bit of a secret for now. I may just use the computer search, guys, to look for a VS Seeker or another Lysander. to lure out the opponent's EV. I'm not entirely sure if that's what I'd like to do just yet, but most likely that is probably what I'm going to be doing. So just a thought. The opponent is going to use the Sacred Ash, get some of his Flareons and other Pokemon back into his deck. We are seeing the Leafeon coming out, and looks like the Latios EX is unfortunately going to get knocked out this time around. So let's go and bring out the Latios EX as our active Pokemon. Currently we can hit for 60 damage, 80 damage due to the Altaria. I mean, if I bring out another Altaria, we will be able to knock out the opponent's Leafeon with a single attack. So I think that's what I'm going to go and do. So let's go and use the Ultra Ball, get rid of the Swablu from our hand, and the Virbank City Gym as well. Look for another one of our Altarias, allowing us to hit for that magic 100 damage. I'm going to go and attach the double Colress energy onto our bench Latios EX, and then let's go and use Fast Trade, 100 damage, and then draw onto an additional one of our prize cards. I mean, with the opponent not having any of his EVs in the bench, I'm not really worried that our Latios EX will be getting knocked out. In fact, I think there's a pretty high likelihood that it will be able to survive and knock out an additional one of the opponent's Pokemon. So things are looking pretty good for us right now. We have the prize card advantage, and the opponent does not have a single one of their EVs on the bench just yet, or any of his Dittos either, so that's kind of cool. The opponent is going to use the Battle Compressor, trim down their deck a little bit. I'm sure we're going to see some sort of supporter card being used by our opponent during his next turn. So let's see what the opponent decides to battle compress into the discard pile. Probably some additional Pokemon that the opponent probably feels is just dead weight at this point. How many EVs? Okay, so our opponent only has a single EV in the discard pile. That Sacred Ash certainly does seem to be paying off. So let's see what the opponent decided to battle compress. Looks like it's a Mr. Mime, another teammates card, and I'm not really sure if that Leafeon was already there. I think it was. So I think the opponent only battle compressed 2 cards. We're seeing the teammates card. The Execute getting propagated back into the opponent's hand. Probably going to be seeing some sort of Ultra Ball. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be seeing an EV coming out. Okay, so it looks like it's actually going to be the Slurpuff, giving the opponent some additional draw support with the Tasting ability. So the opponent will be able to draw onto 2 additional cards. We're seeing the EV coming out, the double colorless energy getting attached to it as well. Another EV coming out onto the opponent's bench. I would have loved for this Latios EX to have a muscle band latched onto it as well, guys, because then in case I did decide to use the escape rope and the opponent okay, so I am able to freely retreat our Pokemon as well. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go and lay down the Hydreigon EX. Let's go and use that escape rope. Again, our active Latios EX currently is able to hit for that magic 100 damage. And okay, looks like the opponent is going to bring out an EV, so let's go and bring out this Latios, use the fast rate attack, hitting our opponent for 80 damage and allowing us to draw onto an additional prize card. We should be able to win during our next turn unless we see the opponent using the N, because I can use the computer search, get rid of 2 cards in our hand, lure out the opponent's Jirachi EX, and that will give us the victory. So I think it's pretty safe to say that at this point, this is our game. I'm quite happy. I mean, these Flareon decks are pretty menacing right now, just because Lysandre's trump card is no longer a part of the game. So it's pretty hard to stop a Flareon deck unless we're just able to repeatedly knock out their Pokemon before they do get the setup going. Alright, so let's see what the opponent decides to do. They have, I think, more than enough Pokemon to knock us out with a single attack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6... 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, so 13 Pokemon right now. Silver Bangle would just allow the opponent to hit for that magic amount of damage to knock out our Latios EX. Yeah, so it looks like the opponent is going to grab onto the Silver Bangle. The Lysandre as well. Okay, so it looks like he's targeting our benched Latios EX. So now we're lacking a little bit with respects to firepower. In case I were to Lysandre out the opponent's Jirachi EX. Okay, so we're in a bit of a sticky situation right now, but I still think we should be able to pull off a win. Unfortunately, now we can't take the win by simply Lysandering out the opponent's Jirachi EX. I don't really think the opponent will be able to knock out our Latios EX during their next turn, so I think I'm going to hold off on all the cards in our hand, just keep them in our hand temporarily. I'm going to go and use the Hypnotoxic Laser, poison the opponent's Flareon, and then hit for 80 damage, knock out the opponent's Flareon, and draw onto an additional prize card. Looks like we're going to be able to draw onto the Juniper. I think we'll be able to go on to the victory this time, guys, unless the opponent manages to pull out the N and somehow one of his Pokemon is able to survive the attack from the Latios EX. That Slurpuff's tasting ability is certainly helping out our opponent to a great extent. But again, we don't see any EVs anything like that set up just yet. I have to say that the Lysandre that the opponent used really threw me off guard. I mean, if I was able to bring out this Latios EX, then we would have, sorry, the Latios EX that had the muscle band latched onto it, we would have been able to pull off the win. The opponent is going to use the N, reduce our hand to a single card. My goodness, this is a very intense and close game, but I think we should be able to win. Alright, so let's go and use the fast raid, hit our opponent for 80 damage, 10 HP short from the knockout. Again, I'm holding off on the energy cards just in case they may come in handy with respects to some of our other Pokemon. The VS Seeker is going to get used from the opponent. Does he have any more double colors energies? I think we've seen the opponent use them all. Okay, so there could potentially be one more double colors energy. The Sycamore, the Audino, and does the opponent have the double dragon energy? I think he may just have it. Yes. Oh my goodness, what an intense game, guys. But looks like the opponent is going to come out on top. So I think that is going to be it, guys. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.